Hey everyone, this is Stanley from ItStartsNow, and here's my tip on how to overcome self-doubt within this entrepreneurship journey. And I know that it's painful for a lot of people when it comes to anxiety to start, not knowing what direction to go into, because a lot of self-doubt comes from the lack of information and the lack of knowledge. And that takes away from some people, it takes away from their confidence level. And I'm here to share some advice that can help everybody to overcome some of that self-doubt when it comes to starting within this entrepreneurship journey. So now for number one, self-affirmations, but mostly the affirmations that we say in the morning and the ones that we say at night. And why is that important, especially at night? It's important because it builds your self-confidence. If you're constantly saying to yourself, you know, I can do this, I can overcome this. Yes, there's going to be challenges, but I can overcome this challenge. You know, once you start saying that to yourself, at some point you start to believe it and you start to say, hey, listen, I could accomplish this. And then it gets you moving to the point now you're taking actionable steps to getting you closer to your goal. And that really starts from building that self-confidence from within. It's not from what people are telling you from the outside. It's not what the world is telling you. The world could see all these positive things that you have to offer, but if you don't believe it within yourself, then it becomes a lot harder. So daily affirmation. And why at night specifically? It's because at night it starts to seep into your self-conscious as you're sleeping and you wake up more positive. But here's a tip that a lot of people may not share. As you're saying your affirmations at night, try to visualize success. Try to visualize the outcome of those affirmations. And here's why. Because once you start seeing it, it becomes real in your mind, in your subconscious heart. It becomes real, and you start to think like, okay, I can see it, so I can attain it. And a lot of people feel like because I can't see it, it's not there. But if your subconscious can see it and they can feel it, then it's gonna start pulling things together. And then as the image becomes clearer, the clearer your path becomes, and the clearer you start to see what it is that you can accomplish. If you ask a lot of successful athletes that win championships, or even successful entrepreneurs, they'll tell you that, you know, the first thing they say, I visualize this throughout my life. That means they've been holding on to an image for such a long time until it manifested to what it is now. And they won that championship, and that's the first thing that comes out. Like, I envisioned this, you know, and here it is. Tip number two, I would suggest you look at the 80-20 rule. And here's why. Because a lot of us dwell on the 20% of things that went wrong instead of looking at the 80% that went right. Now, we're not saying disregard the 20% of the things that went wrong, because you need to learn from it. You need to gain that experience. But then don't dwell on it to the point where it brings you down. And that can be a confidence killer. So what you want to do is, after you assess the 20% that went wrong, after you actually took out some of the lessons that you needed from there, right? Now go into, all right, what went right? What were some of the 80% that went right? And keep pulling from that thread. What happens is that motivates you to say, okay, we had some setbacks, but now I learned those lessons, but I also saw the amount of things that went right that we can tap into, that's gonna progress us in the, you know, the days to come, that's gonna motivate us to keep going, to keep pushing. And you need that, because setbacks are going to happen. And if you dwell on it too much, it starts to kill your energy, it starts to kill your confidence. So you need something to pull from it. So before you end the day or end the week, look at 80% of the things that went right. Use that as leverage to get you to the next level. Tip number three, learn from other entrepreneurs. One of the things I like to do, I like to read their book. But if they don't, and I can't get in contact with them, I read what they read, what got them started, and what got them motivated, because it's out there. The information is out there if you look carefully. So read it for the things that, you know, inspired them, and reread those books, and then pull from that as well, and see how your confidence starts to build up, because you start to realize that there are patterns that they leave behind that you can say, oh, okay, they went through their little struggles here, but they overcame it. If you do have the opportunity to talk to entrepreneurs, talk to entrepreneurs within your bracket, right? So let's say you're in the startup phases. I would look at somebody within the $1 million mark to the $10 million mark, because they just came out those phases, so they're more familiar. When somebody's in the, you know, $20-30 million range, or even, you know, they $100 million going to the billions, they're a little bit more removed from the early startup. So the landscape probably changed. They're probably unfamiliar. They could record certain things here and there. They could give you some feedback. But the actual person that's like in the midst of it and just came out of it, I would get their advice, because then they could really give you some ideas of what the journey is going to be like for within this time. What it is that the struggles that they went through, that they overcame, that can help you now. Those are the things that I would try to focus on, because they will probably give you more of an in-depth insight, because it's so raw, it's so new, that they can share those point of views. There's nothing wrong with learning from different entrepreneurs, even outside of the scope of your field. So that way you can have a better understanding about the whole entrepreneurship journey in totality. So that way it can help you out. And lastly, tip number 4 is accept failures. Be comfortable with failures, and here's why. Failures are going to happen. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have, things obstacles that's going to come in your way, and you're going to have some struggles in the beginning. You're going to probably over budget, which I'm pretty sure a lot of us do in the beginning, because we're not familiar with it. So you're going to overspend. There's a lot of time wasted. But when you look back in hindsight and you start connecting the dots, you're going to realize all these things added so much value, because you went through this whole master class to get you here to this point where you are right now. So I always look at it, do not put the cart in front of the horse. The horse still got to come first. So without this happening, you wouldn't be able to experience what you're experiencing now. You want to make sure that you count all your blessings, because you had all these mistakes and failures in the beginning, and you learn from it in time. So as your company scales, you're familiar with it. You want to know your operation and all its moving parts, all that you can, so that way you can anticipate things in the future. But in order to do that, you may have to fail in the beginning a few times to really understand your operation and understand what your operation needs are. And that is key. And that happens a lot of times is through failure. We can learn from success. We can learn from other people's success. We can learn from a little bit from our success as well too. But the growth is within the pain, and the growth is within those obstacles that we overcame, and then we realize things that work. I want you to say to yourself, okay, failures are part of this journey, part of this process. I have to learn from it and grow from it. So I'm gonna be kind to myself. Not saying that you won't be disappointed because you have high expectations and then you have high demands. It's just saying that, okay, I know that this is gonna come, and I should be okay with it to a degree where I'm not taking it too hard on myself and I'm killing my self-confidence. Accept it for what it is. It's a learning curve. I made a mistake, or this is a failure. We're gonna bounce back from this, all right? What can I pull from this 80-20? And then, move forward from there. And that way will keep your confidence up. You won't be hanging your head down because every time something goes wrong and you're saying, why me? Because it's really preparing you for the bigger goal. And if you don't go through this, you don't know what to anticipate in the future. That's tip number 4. So let's recap. Number 1, the affirmation, the daily affirmation, especially at night. Try to visualize. It's very important to build your self-confidence up, so that way it keeps you going. You want to make sure that you wake up with a fresh start and tackle the day feeling like you can accomplish anything. And the only way to do that is to repeat it over and over and over and again until you believe it. And then once you believe it, you start taking actions towards it. Number 2, the 80-20 rule. Just understand that the 20% are there, they will happen. Once I learn from it, let's pull out the 80% that went well. Look at the things that went well that we can use as a motivational tool to get us to keep going. 3rd, speak to entrepreneurs. Speak to multiple entrepreneurs. Get their insight. Learn from what it is that they do. Learn part of the struggles that they overcame. This will give you confidence to say, okay, things, like I said earlier, things will happen, but if they did it, I can do it too. And lastly, just be okay with yourself. Be okay that you're going to make some failures and you're going to make some mistakes. And I think that's a key part of growth and growing into a keen business person or a keen entrepreneur that has insights on the failures and the success. So, and you'll be able to share that information as well too. I hope this brought you value. there's something you would like to leave in a comment, please share. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. There's nothing wrong with sharing ideas and sharing information. I know that's how a community grows, and I would love to grow with this community. And I would like to hear what you have to say.